30% of the cost versus only 20%. And you could have up to an additional $3,000 of co-insurance. So on the $5,000 deductible, I'd pay the first $5,000, then I would pay 30% of the next $10,000, which is another $3,000. My out-of-pocket for a single could be $8,000. For a family, could be up to 24 grand. All of us in our family got sick. Now, once again, if only one of the four in my family gets sick, my deductible's $5,000, then I pay 30% of the next 10. Now I hit my out-of-pocket, the plan pays the rest of the covered expenses. Copay, notice that one is now $30 versus $25. They also have the emergency room access where you would pay $200 for the emergency room, a $200 copay versus $150. Sometimes they handle emergency rooms a little differently on some of these plans. As you work your way down too, notice the maternity is complications only. So they have a reduction on how they do it, and the divider is right between the $2,500 to $5,000. So if I took a $5,000 deductible and my wife would have a baby, guess who's paying for it? Us. There's no insurance out, unless the baby would have complications. So you want to be aware of those types of things. You know, if you don't want maternity or don't need it, and you're just looking at the premium, just make sure you understand how your policy works. Group plans pretty much all cover maternity. I don't think by law they can even not cover it. So that's another difference between group and individual. But individual policies, there's things that can be excluded, and it's designed to get the prices lower. And we're going to see, when we look at the rates, you'll see what I'm talking about. Some people say, I can't afford this, so I'm willing to have a little higher deductible and have a little lower premium. The prescription drug benefit's the same. The one thing you do want to note is the deductible's $500 on the drug card versus only $100 under those if you took a higher deductible. So once again, you're having more exposure, more out-of-pocket potential as you work your way up on the deductible and co-insurance. Now, this particular program with Blue Cross is 5 plans they offer. Every company is different. It's not that they're all the same. It's just the ones we're just showing this for illustrative purposes only, how this particular plan works. But this is under the Blue Select Plus. This is how their benefits work on the individual. So that's why I didn't make them up. I took a copy out of the book for it. So, any questions on this at all? On how these benefits work on the individual? Like I said, I'm focusing more on the individual insurance to give you an idea how the individual health insurance works. You have to apply for it. You have to be approved. They can tell you no. They can give you a rate up. In most insurance, too, you're supposed to have a 12-month period of time where you've had insurance. Sometimes we run into people saying, I've never had it, I don't need it, I'll wait until I get sick. Well, the problem is you could have a waiting period if that happens. Even if you get on a group plan, you may have to wait 12 months before it be covered if you wait until you're sick. You ideally like to have some coverage in place, even if it's a high deductible, just to show you've had what's called credible coverage is the terminology used. Credible coverage.
I have a question about the emergency room.
Yeah.
Say you're not admitted. Say they treat you in the emergency room and send you home. They don't pay for anything?
So if you're not admitted, so use an example, and let me just use this one, like if you're out mowing your yard on a Sunday afternoon and you slice your hand open.
Right.
You have to go in and get stitches. You're not going to be admitted. They're not going to keep you overnight. What typically happens on this particular policy is you're going to pay a $200 copay.
Even if you're not admitted?
Yep. Now, if you're admitted, what they do, what would typically happen is you would then start having to go towards your deductible and co-insurance. But it's just a flat copay is typically how they do it. Now, some policies, not necessarily this one, but some policies will actually have you, if you're not admitted, you have to pay $150. Then it goes towards your deductible. And what it's really used for is kind of a, hate to say it, more of a club approach, like a discourager. They don't want people just running to it. Now, you can't help it when it's a Sunday afternoon. Now, what you could do is run to the urgent care. That would be an example. But if it's midnight and you had something happen, or you have a kid that is having a 105 fever and you need to rush them in, you typically in those particular cases. Not necessarily this particular plan, but a lot of the other ones, they'll have an access fee. It's just a way to discourage people from just going in at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, or Saturday morning, saying, I don't want to wait until the other clinic opens, I'm just going to run them in. Because the emergency rooms cost a lot more to operate, to run. They're probably 5 times as expensive as a normal clinic. very good question though. So you do want to be careful in the emergency rooms. Most insurance plans actually you'll pay lower amounts if you go to clinics and urgent cares because they're operated as less expensive and it'll have you less out-of-pocket expense. The other important thing is when we say out-of-pocket, in almost all cases, co-pays do not count towards my out-of-pocket. So use an example. Let's say I had knee surgery, and let's say my particular plan says every time you go to the physical therapist, we're going to treat it as an office copay, and I paid $25. Well, if I had my knee surgery, I might have hit my deductible and co-insurance. I might have paid $3,500, but every time I go in to see the doctor, or if it's a physical therapist and they subject it to copays, I have to pay those copays, and they go above and beyond my deductible and co-insurance. So sometimes you can have more. You know, if you have to go see the doctor 5 more times, I'm paying my $25 copay 5 more times, which is another $125. It gets tacked on top of my $3,500. Copays typically do not go towards your out-of-pocket. So some people say, I'd rather not have a copay plan just so I know what my true out-of-pocket is. And if you don't have a copay, your premium will actually be a little bit lower. If you have a really big claim, you're going to be better served that way. Yes?
My husband and I work for the same company, but we have separate policies since it's just cheaper for us.
Yep.
And we go to the same clinic, and I never get charged a copay, and he does. Is it because he's on a different plan?
He's probably on a different plan. He's probably on a different plan. And sometimes with the plans, as like an example, one plan might be where you have a copay option, whereas plan 2 might be a health savings account or another type of insurance plan that does not have a copay.
So I need to look at his
Well,
policy.
it's probably worth at least looking at what the options are. Now, you
Okay.
want to look at the premiums between the two. Usually if you don't pay a copay when you go in, that means your plan is subject to deductible and co-insurance. So if a person's had some claims, they may have hit their deductible and co-insurance, but once the plan resets, sometimes a lot of them are the first of the year, but also sometimes it can be the 1st of April or July or...
Well, and I've been doctoring with some stuff all year.
Yep.
I've
Yep,
reached
so
my deductible.
you probably
and
hit your
everything.
deductible and co-insurance.
But even at the beginning in January, I still wasn't paying a copay.
Okay.
So I need to look at his policy.
Yeah, you
You're
want to look
saying-
at that.
yeah.
Usually what it is usually at some point that deductible is going to start over, and if you're not paying, when you will start paying again. But it's good to at least look at the two options and weigh it out. Now, if the only thing I go in is like maybe 3 times a year to see the doctor, a copay would be better off for me maybe, because I'm not hitting my out-of-pocket. I'm getting a reduced rate when I go in. But if I have a lot of claims during the year and maybe I've hit my deductible and co-insurance, I might be better served to say, have a plan that doesn't have a copay because I cap my out-of-pocket at a lower level. The other thing is on the prescription drugs are additional copays as well, so they go above and beyond the $3,500 out-of-pocket. That end. So, any other questions just on this sheet before we actually talk about some rates at all? Anybody else think of anything? All right, let's move on to the rates. Okay, well this is an example of the Blue Cross rates. Once again, illustrative purposes only. I put at the top because it depends on, and this is just strictly for the purpose of using it for this class. The way Blue Cross handles it is they rate it by region, and region 2 is Mitchell. So if I lived in Sioux Falls, my region would be a different region. The rates are slightly different. If I lived in Fort Pierre, my rates are going to be a little bit different too because I'm a different region. So this is strictly for where we're at today. If we're in Mitchell, and these rates are as of July 1 of 2012. Final rates are subject to underwriting. But for purposes, let's just pretend. And who wants to be our volunteer today? And we're going to need your age because we're going to look at some various
I'll
ones.
do it.
All right, this young lady here. Your name is?
Andrea.
Andrea. All right, Andrea's we're going to use her as an example, and we're going to look at various deductibles so we can kind of see what the cost is going to be. So Andrea, what is your age?
27.
27. All right, so everyone sees the chart up there under the $1,500 deductible. We go to the 25 to 29-year-old category, which would be the category Andrea would be in. We slide our way over, and we can see for a single female, the rate is $401.30. Now, does anyone see what what is, I would say, a discrepancy in it? The discrepancy, or the difference is, if Andrea was a male, look what her rate would be, $234.